Yeah, I think you might try
Alright.
if it allows you.
I may even remove the country and then I put the name, I think.
I'll leave the country too. People can see as big or small, depending. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good to see. Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting for a few minutes, talking about names and pronunciations. So jump in, and as you're coming in, do put your name and where you're coming in from in the chat window.
In the chat, okay.
Yes.
So Renee, are you translating already?
So we are already 5 minutes past the hour, so maybe we can get started, Rocio?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say hello, everybody. Welcome to this conversation with this panel. And first of all, we're gonna say to Papusa and Saul, who are going to help us with the technical issues and with many other things, as you know, many of you don't know them. And of course, Renee, who is going to translate all the conversation. So we're going to try to talk a little bit slowly and trying that you could not lose many things with the translation, even though we know that we are always translating in our lives. So welcome everybody, and maybe Saliha is going to talk a little bit about the technical issue.
Yeah. So just to remind everyone, welcome to the Taos gathering, and we will be meeting for 2 hours today. And this session is being recorded. When we go into small groups, we will not record. But if you don't want your video as part of the recording, you can keep your camera off, though we would love to see you and connect across all the world is here, I feel. And when you're not talking, to please keep your mics off so we can hear each other. And you have full control to switch on and off your mic. But for whatever reason, if it is challenging, then one of our tech team members, including myself, will mute you. And I apologize in ahead if you were trying to talk and it sounded like background, please unmute and come back into the conversation. Translation. Renee is translating into Spanish, and those of you who need the Spanish channel, if you look at your panel of the menu of Zoom, there's a little globe sign which says interpretation. And if you click on that, you will have the Spanish audio channel, and you can click and go into that.
Maybe Sally, I'm going to say in Spanish.
Yeah.
But, okay, hay traducción al español, así que en la parte de abajo René está traduciendo para nosotros, lo cual agradecemos muchísimo. Tenemos la interpretación, abajo hay un mundito donde dice interpretación, ahí pónganle clic y van a encontrar la traducción al español. Pónganle ahí y van a estar escuchando la voz de René en lugar de todas las demás en inglés. Si tienen alguna duda o cualquier cosa, por favor, no tienen más que incluso levantar la mano o utilizar los emoticones para levantar la mano y pudiera ser mucho más fácil. Gracias.
And you can put your questions in Spanish or in English in the chat window. We will have time at the end. We have definitely got about 20 minutes, if not more, for Q&A and open group conversation. So as the questions are coming up, we'll also see if it fits. We might weave it into our conversation. And when it is time for you to speak, you can speak in English or Spanish. And Rocio, is that okay? Then whoever's speaking in Spanish, Rocio will translate it on the spot in English for us. And we will make this session work together. Anything else on the technical side before we introduce Rocio and myself?
I just want to ask if everybody has had already doing the interpretation thing. Si todo mundo ya entendió cómo hacer la parte de que escuchen a René en lugar de en lugar de nosotros.
Yeah.
Todo el mundo ya está
I'm
conectado.
seeing Diego nod his head. Yeah. Horace got
Right.
his, yep, I see thumbs up. Excellent. So anytime the audio is not working for this translation, please interrupt, just interrupt us so that we won't know it. If Renee's voice goes down, he's still talking, but he will not know that you can't hear him. Okay. And Renee, thank you very much for translating, and let us know when we need to slow down, and also feel free to give your spin on what we're talking. Renee is very good at this. So I think I just want to be open that we can also build on each other's knowledge together.
Okay.
So Rocio, how do we introduce ourselves and why we're hosting the space?
Well, I think the first thing is we have been working together in different things. Sabiha and I working together in different things. And one of it, I told her about the group that we are going to introduce during the conference, the group that it's Mutual Learning Program. And for me, it has been very interesting to see how we go from local to global and global to local in all of these things that we have been doing all together. We have a panel today that is from different parts, from Africa, from Romania, and from Ecuador. That it's the global. How are all of these things doing in a global way? But it was the beginning was from just a local place.
So we're going to come to that. So before we jump into global local, I want to have you introduce yourself. There may be somebody here who might not be familiar with either Taos Institute or ICCP or me or you. So first, let's introduce Rocio. Who is Rocio and what is her vision in the world of global good?
Okay. Well, first of all, I am Rocio, and I think most of you know me, but I am in Mérida, Yucatan, and it's one of the most important places of the Mayan world. And it has been very interesting to how do we, as the people who work in Cananquil, that is an institute of that we do master programs, and in a not just presence but online, and that of collaborative based on social constructionism and collaborative dialogical practices. So what I like more is what I have been learning more is how to continue with dialogue all the time and trying to do good conversations, and that means to open possibilities and to have conversations that we hadn't had before in other places. So I've been working in many parts of the world, and with all of these ideas that has to be with the Taos Institute, with the ICCP program, the Collaborative Dialogical programs with Herlene Anderson, and also, of course, with Ken and Sheila, but all with our colleagues from the Taos Institute. So that's why we are here, and we have been working in all of it with social justice and working with community and working with government, with all of these ideas, and that's why we are here, and that's why I think that we touch each other in our work.
Yeah, and we want to talk about, so we want to talk about that work in terms of child protection services in the United States. That's how it's referred to. In different parts of the world, it may go by different names, and to reflect together with the people who are going to be on a panel. We are going to talk about how this work came into being, and then Helma, who's one of the presenters today, is going to talk and present some ideas about the work. And then we are going to invite people who are from Romania, Kenya, Rwanda, Yemen, Ecuador, to reflect about this concept of mutual learning by doing mutual learning here. So we're going to do that, and then we will go into small breakout rooms to reflect on what we have been learning together. So that's kind of our program. But before we jump into that, like Rocio was saying, I'm Saliha Bava, and I'm here in New York City, originally from India. And for the last 20, 30 years, I've been playing and engaging in what we call collaborative dialogic practices. And as Rocio mentioned, it's from Houston Galveston Institute's foundational ideas that Harlene Anderson and Harry Galushan were instrumental in focusing on how through conversation and collaboration, we co-create the world. And I'm hoping that that's in the spirit of that idea, we will see how Helma and team have created shifts at both local and global levels, and how they support themselves through collaboration and conversation. What is central to them in those set of ideas? How do they do shared inquiry? And so if you're wondering, these are kinds of terms, these are jargons, but we want to make it real today. So how do we do shared inquiry? What is a not knowing position? And so as we listen to the panelists, I invite you, if you are familiar with collaborative dialogic practices, to kind of notice how they operationalize it and practice these ideas. And if you're not new to these ideas, we are going to come back, Rocio and I will come back and tie it back in some ways as we listen. For my full-time job, I teach at Mercy College, and I am teaching in the Marriage and Family Therapy program. And my own work is very much influenced by collaborative dialogic practices, as well as social constructionist ideas, especially for diversity, inclusion, and in teaching and learning, and in organizational spaces, and kind of challenging what might be dominant discourses of how things should be done. So kind of, I'm a troublemaker with a good intent to trouble or problematize things. So I will leave it at that, and we will weave in. When Rocio told me about this program, Rocio, you were just so lighted up that I was like, I need to meet this team. And we met up. And I want to start by asking you, how did you start this? How did this come about? Because you always say it started locally and then went global and then went local. So say a little bit more how this program came about, and what is its original intent and where is it today?
Well, I think that it has been very interesting, but and I was thinking what you were talking is that first, I think from the global idea of social construction ideas of the Taos Institute with many people all around the world, with collaborative dialogical practices, that it's in a global way of different programs all around the world. I think that all of these come to Yucatan, for example, in Mérida, where I am, where is Cannon Hill, where is many of us that we are all here in the conversation. And then what happened is that the program of online program of collaborative dialogical practice of the master program on collaborative dialogical practices, we have people from many places in Latin America, and one of them was Ecuador.
Mm.
And then it begins that when they finish the master program, they began working with these ideas in their own work that was child protection in their country.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a wonderful work that they have done, that they had just continued the dialogue, even it was very difficult for them to continue the dialogue with the government and with the NGOs. Mm-hmm. But they continue working with that, and they just, even the result of some time they're working with the government, they have public policies based on collaborative dialogical practices in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. So after that, it was Helma and the Daniel Children Foundation with many other groups all around.
We are going to introduce shortly. You can see her picture, but we are going to give a formal introduction.
So she started a new program with people all around the world, from Africa, with Eastern Europe, people from Latin America, that has to do with child protection and collaborative dialogical practices. So we move from local to global all the time.
Mm,
And it is like, how do we would like to see the future in a different way, because they are all involved in the way of how do we would like the world would be. And it has to do with respect, with the position of not knowing position, with the idea of really be engaged in dialogue instead of trying to impose what is the best for children and families, and even though to this institutionalization, but not as a way of, now this is the position, but as a way of, well, it's just one of them.
yeah. So
Nah.
we are going to get a little bit more into how traditionally childcare, child protection is in
Yeah.
different countries, and then I guess one of the things that this program, we're calling it the Mutual Learning Program, is trying to shift the discourse that rather than placing children in institutions, children are better off if they are with their families and kinship or community placements.
Yeah, but now we that what I think that we are trying to do, all the ones that we are working in this program, mutual program, is not that now instead of this is this, but it's just multiple possibilities. But
Multiple
now
possibilities.
it's a challenge, because before it was they have to take care of their houses, but
Right.
now we have to come back to the house, to their own house, to their own family. So it has been very interesting. And but I was just thinking why we are here in the TAOS conference, that is local to global and global to local, is that we have been moving from local to global and learning from each country, from each NGO, and take it to global and then to local, and all the time moving from that space to the other.
Mm-hmm. And how many countries are you talking about? As you said, you started in Ecuador.
Yeah, we started they started in Ecuador, where is Helma and her group of Daniel Children Foundation. And then she moves to, and that in this moment it's Peru, it's Ecuador, I don't know, it's and Africa, a lot of
countries in Africa, yeah.
And Romania.
Romania. Okay. And we're going to have some people from each of those countries talking as well. So I'll leave. We are creating a little mystery here, and then we will do a reveal of this. So I guess the invitation here is to notice how the conversations are happening with people, but also how it travels to policy level. And then from policy level, it comes back to programming. And all of these conversations are cross-country as well as local, meaning they are supporting each other, but each country has its own way by which they are doing this transformational work.
It's like each family has their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
And same thing. So if they had some experience from other families, how do we share them with the other families? And then the other families decided what to do. And that's a new meaning, and that's a new knowledge. And that's the way of coming from global to local, local to global, moving and constructing it. I hope so, a better future. That's what we're trying to do.
Yes. So should we jump in and lift the curtain of the people that we've been referring to and introduce? So
when we ask, yes, Papusa, can we
have the slides?
Okay, let me introduce you, Helma van der Hoven from Ecuador. She's co-founder of Daniel Children Foundation, a Dutch organization that aims to support children and their families both in Nepal and Ecuador. Currently, DCF, Daniel Children Foundation, is accompanying the Ecuadorian government to create public policy in order to avoid that children live in institutions, offering alternative family and community-based care instead. Papus, can we have the next one? Thank you, Justin from Rwanda. An experience of more than 10 years working with children with disabilities in Ubum Wekam Community Center in Rwanda. He is dedicated to children's rights with nobody behind, member of the Transform Alliance Africa. Next one. Khadija Al-Sahad from Yemen, experience and international community development with a strong belief in the development that goes hand in hand with the communities we work with. Work with children, families, educators, and all involved in community work behind it, individuals, local NGOs, or international organizations.
Okay. Irene Wangichi. I hope I'm saying your last name right. Child protection expert. Thank you. Child protection expert and a psychological counselor by profession, a passionate advocate of family-based care over institutionalization for vulnerable children. Irene is also a member of Transform Alliance Africa, working together for an Africa free from orphanages and Citizens for Change, a group of young adults who are child protectors, helping build safe. Poima Carrion from Ecuador. She studied psychology and currently collaborative dialogic practices at the Kanan Kiel Institute. She has been involved with initiatives to promote and protect human rights, especially children's rights. For some years, she has been working in the field of child protection public policies. And lastly, Otto Sestak. Again, I hope I'm saying your name right, Otto, from Romania. I'm just meeting each one of them, so I'm learning as we all learn together. Otto has been working with Hope and Homes for Children, international programs, and is the head of learning and engagement. He has conducted programs to support and advise the development of deinstitutionalization, systemic reform, and alternative care. He has over 20 years of experience in the area of children care and development. So with that, we welcome everybody. And Rocio and I will hand the mic to Helma, who will do a brief presentation to give us more body about the program. And then the panelists will be in a mutual learning conversation. And Rocio and I will return back to join you, Helma, at that point with the panelists. So welcome everybody, and thank you very much for being here, and we're excited to listen and learn from you. The floor is yours, Helma.
Thank you so much, Salia and Rocio. I always feel this kind of spaces are always very magical, because by talking together, we are all learning and things are going to be different. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like to start with a very small presentation about the mutual learning program. And then, of course, we will, together with the facilitators, because we are a group of facilitators, we will have the discussion. I just shared my presentation. Here it is. So it's about mutual learning and child protection and the global conversation. I was thinking, while Rocio and Salia were speaking, I was thinking about that it started very locally, because as we started the masters with Kanan Kiel, we were actually trying to apply that in our work with the families and the children. And we learned a lot from the families and the children. And actually that made us thinking, how can we apply that, what we have learned together, how to have dialogue together, how can we apply that also, for example, with the government. So it went from the families, from the children, our experience with them, it went to our work with the government. And then we met other people who were working in the same fields, and we started together sharing more, and they shared with us. So that's a bit how the mutual learning program grew, because it's in process, and it will continue. We have a very, I think, from my personal point of view, a very important theme we're working on, and that also makes that we are together, because the International Convention on the Rights of the Children says that for the full and harmonious development of the personality, children should live in environments with their families, where there's harmony, where there's happiness, where there's love, where there's understanding. However, at the same time, there's still worldwide a lot of children that are growing up in less favorable circumstances. We're talking about, we think, more than 5.4 million children that are living at orphanages. And we also think that 80 to 90% of the children that live in institutions, they still have parents, one or two, and they're still alive. Evidence, scientific evidence, that what is the impact of institutionalization in children? I mean, UNICEF has a very famous video where they share that when a child that is younger than 3 years that lives in an institution, for every year institutionalized will lose 4 months of its developments. So it's a tremendous impact on the life of the children. So it's a very important subject we're talking about. But at the same time, as everything in life, is how do you transmit this message? Because you can be very much in favor of the institutionalization, but there are also a lot of people who say, but what we're doing in institution is really good, and I put my heart in it. And how can you start talking together without opposing each other? And that's where I think the dialogical and collaborative practices have helped us a lot, because it's about trying to understand the other one. So not being opponents, but trying what do we have in common and how can we walk together towards something we do not know. I mean, of course, we would like that all children live in their families, but it's very important that we start listening to each other, because there are specific situations for every child, it is different. So what happened is that we got a beautiful group together, and I don't know how it happens, because it was just, it's magic. I mean, there is a little idea and you start sharing it with other people, and then there come really beautiful people around. I mean, I'm here with a group of really beautiful co-facilitators, and it just happens because you're speaking and you're listening to each other. So suddenly we have a group of organizations like Transform Alliance Africa, Wild Geese from the Netherlands, Family for Every Child, Hope and Homes for Children, Family Power, which is an organization with 18 organizations behind them. So we have a mutual learning program, and it's by opening the invitation and saying, let's speak together and let's think together. Because the mutual learning program is about relationships. Our focus is not so much on what we do, but on how we do it, and how we first of all relate to the children, how we relate to the families, how do we see them, and how do they see us, and how do we get to know each other, their communities, and also how do we relate to each other as professionals. Instead of saying, as this is my organization, saying no, we have the responsibility to share, because at the end, everything we do is the ownership is with the children and their families and not with the organization. So there's almost like it's not almost, there is an ethical responsibility to work together. Also because there's written a lot, and I think theoretically it is well, the message is quite clear. The United Nations has published a lot of international NGOs have published a lot on the theme. But how do you do it in practice? That's the hard bit. I mean, like there are many international laws, and laws are very useful, but how do you apply the laws? That is always the key question. So what we try to do in this mutual learning is being practical. What does it mean then in our practice, and how do we do it? And what do you think of it? How do you do it, for example, in Yemen? How do you do it in Syria? How do you do it in Ghana? And trying to learn from each other. And someone said, I mean, but the program won't be very culturally sensitive. And we said, no, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for to listen to each other and to learn and to get inspired. Because what happens, for example, with Justin in Rwanda, we can't apply it in Ecuador, but we can get inspired, and it can make us thinking differently. So also another element is very much the bottom-up element. So organizations that provide the care, we want to share our experiences together. So it's not theoretical, it's very practical. Then the target groups are really worldwide. So Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America. It's very exciting that we have people from Armenia, we have people from Syria, we have people from Rwanda, Romania. It's quite interesting that it's so diverse, and that's the richness of the program. And we are focusing on people that are working with the families, but also the other stakeholders in the program, like, for example, the donors and the policymakers, because they influence a lot, and we need to talk together, and not by convincing the other one, but talking together and see how we can change together. So what are we doing at this moment? We focus on the collaborative and dialogical practices. In we have like a program where we have 4 models. The first one is then about collaborative and dialogical practices. So how do we work with the families? Then we have a model on how to work with families and communities, and that's more technical. So what is the impact of institutionalization? How do we engage families? How do we do case management, needs assessments, etc.? But also how do we do reintegration processes? And then we're going to talk about ourselves as organizations. So if we want the children that they can really develop completely, how do we then transform ourselves? Because it's not about transforming families, it's about transforming ourselves. And it's a beautiful part of our work. I think, therefore, we should always be very grateful to the children and their families, because they give us the chance to grow as well. And so how do we transform? How can we do practically, that's called gatekeeping practice. So the children that go into institutional care really need it. Otherwise they shouldn't be there. That's gatekeeping practices. We do the transitioning processes from our own organizations, and the networking and advocacy. And something that is very important is we also work together on our mutual take care of the caregiver, about ourselves, because how we position ourselves with the other people, with the governments, with the families. I think we have some key elements what we would like to share just from the social constructionist ideas. As I said before, we prioritize the relationship over the results. And I think something that is really very important is we do not need to agree. That's something I learned very much also from the masters in collaborative and dialogical practices. We do not need to agree. We keep the dialogue going. So, for example, we do trainings, and sometimes people say exactly at the end of the training, they say exactly the opposite of what we thought was the truth. And I think how exciting, how interesting, because what have I been learning from that person? And that gives a very relaxed atmosphere as well, because you don't need to convince somebody else. You can put your energy more in relationships. Our also very clear definition of our role. Our role is not to change the world, not to change someone else. Our role is to facilitate the dialogue, and have the responsibility to change ourselves. Our technical proposals are only one more voice and not the most important one. It's an ID, and this ID should be transformed again because there are many more people. They also have IDs, and also one of the ideas is we try not to control. Instead, we try to have faith and confidence in the process. And I think personally, for me, that's a very, very important element, because when you believe in something via dialogue and the way how you dialogue, you can create a lot together. I believe that is one of the basis is when it's also the energy that there is, and from this energy you can do a lot. There's a lot possible. We believe very much in possibilities. There are many problems, but there are many, many, many possibilities. So just sharing, because now I'm coming to my co-facilitators, because I'm very excited. We are here with a beautiful group of people. For example, from Kenya, people said, and that's also one of the comments of the co-facilitators, my approach to child protection and deinstitutionalization will be different. That is my feeling, and I look forward to getting better in it. I'm wiser now. Also, one of our co-facilitators said, this training has been dear to me. I thought it was a regular training, chatting about how to do this, but it was a real learning program. And what I learned is that you do not have to agree with each other, that it's about listening, and that's about changing your own way of seeing things. And therefore, another colleague said, I feel it has taken the burden away from finding the solutions. It gives me a lot of relief. It is a big burden to tell people how to live their lives. And also, I appreciate that I've heard many new things. They started to change my way of working, my way of relating to other people. And I think that is a bit what we feel with the mutual learning program. There's a lot to do outside out in the world, a lot. But it's at the same time liberating, because together we can create different realities, especially in the situation, complex situations where children live very big challenges like violence, abuse, maltreatment, and still maintaining the hope that when you have people together, dialoguing and collaborating together, things can be different. So yeah, now up to the team. I think I've spoken enough, just to give a bit of a basis where we are. And I'm very happy I'm here with Justin, Irene, Aditya, Otto, and Poe. And yeah, I really would like to give the word to you. We've been talking a little bit before, what are we going to do? But my main question to you is, what does it
Helma,
mean? Yeah,
before you go there, if you want to stop sharing the slides so we can see all of you.
I will. That's a very good one.
And for the rest of the audience, the 6 of them are pinned. So if you go into Zoom, on the top, it says view. And if you select speaker view, you will just see only the 6 of them. That might help. But you can always see the gallery view and see the 6 among the rest of the 30 people here. So thank you, Helma.
Thank you, Salia, for the technical detail. It's very important. So Otto, Justin, Irene, Aditya, and Poema, what did it mean for you, the mutual learning program? What is different now for you? What are your thoughts? Who would like to start? Otto, go ahead.
I'm happy to go first, you know this. Well, the mutual learning program is still something very exciting, and that still provides to me personally a lot of learning and excitement, and I find it very, very dear. As I said, when we started this, I thought it was just going to be a regular training program where you go in with a number of expectations and you have a set agenda. That's what you need to communicate, and you know, the regular stuff. Much to my surprise, I found that I was enjoying myself so tremendously after the first session that I couldn't wait for the second one to come. And I know I have missed some of them, because that's, you know, real life. You cannot do only that which you enjoy. You sometimes have to go to work. But I find it that I'm still looking forward to every single meeting where we have a chance to exchange ideas. To me, the program was this perfect platform where, as Khadija said, you come in without the burden of having to pursue your agenda. And you come in as you would go into a really relaxed, challenging intellectually conversation, but a conversation where you talk, where you listen, where you exchange ideas, and you don't feel the pressure of pushing for your own sets of ideas. Now, interestingly enough, what I have found doing the program is that despite, well, probably because of this lack of pressure, agendas actually come to happen much easier and much better than it would with all that pressure, where you have to convince people, where you have to be persuasive, where you have to tell them and direct them and dream up all the examples and all that. I thought that it was really, really moving ahead. My agenda was really moving ahead just by having really nice conversations. And I could see people thinking differently. And again, much to my surprise, I could see myself thinking differently at times and saying, maybe listening is not such a bad idea after all. And maybe not feeling the burden so much and not feeling the pressure so much, you actually start seeing things clearer, and you actually move towards the solution without having that pressure of, I have the answer, I must find the answer, I must give others the answers. Like, it's out there, we'll find it. And I know that with Helma we had a it wasn't quite of a debate, but I felt that as she mentioned at one point describing the program, she talked about going into the program with faith. And I was thinking, faith is a word that doesn't really, I was thinking at the time, doesn't really convey a lot of professionalism, I thought. I mean, it has to be something more evidence-based or solid data. But her reply was really eye-opening to me, and it is about faith. It's about faith, conviction, or just the confidence that by doing things this way, you can actually find a solution together, a better solution than you would have thought on your own.
Thank you so much, Otto, and it's so beautiful to continue the conversation, especially about this part of the faith as well. That it's beautiful to see how a conversation stops and then it continues again. Let's see. Thank you so much. Boa, I saw you nodding, so I think you have the word.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking what Rocio said, first of all, that this is an experience of think globally and to act locally. And I also think it's an experience of think locally and to share globally what we're thinking, what we're doing. And it has been a really wonderful experience because, for example, I have read a lot of materials that Hope and Homes for Children have made, guidelines or manuals, etc. And those text says what to do and how to do it, but not why to do it. And have this space of sharing, and those conversations allows us to understand better why they did what they did. And also that allows us to think the difference between or realities. For example, Rwanda's case, they had a lot of children in institutions, lots of children. And in Ecuador, we don't have lots of children. Rather, we have one of the lowest rates of institutionalized children in all our region. But the problem that we have is the gap of children that live violence and they're not being attended by state or organizations, etc. So be able to see that difference. You don't see that in the textbooks. You just can understand that when we talk each other. And you can also have this opportunity to challenge yourself, challenge the way that you were thinking. So also challenge your objectives, because I was thinking that the institutionalization was the goal that we have to pursue in Ecuador. And now I'm rethinking that. I'm engaged with the institutionalization, but not in the same way that I was before. Also, I was remembering that there was a special session to me where one colleague told us how it was really difficult to her, because she works into an institution, and authorities, the judges, forbid them to accept visits to families, to their children, adolescent women, because those were not good families enough. They weren't prepared to visit the children. But she told us that she thought that was cruel, because those adolescents need to see their parents, their families, and that's are the kind of things you can say in your country with other organizations that are working in the same field, because you have you may have the problem, they sign you like you're not doing well, you're not acting professionally. But when she shared that experience with other organizations around the world, we were able to say her that she was doing well. She was acting based on human rights, and we were able to think and to reflect about that, and also to think what she can do, not just to not just to challenge authorities' decisions, but also continuing with her struggle in a different way that could reinforce the human rights of the children with she was working with. Yeah.
Thank you so
I
much,
can go
Pauline.
next.
It's very important. Hadija, please go ahead with your
Sorry
reflections.
sorry that I turned the video off, but the connection is not very strong here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. I would like to reflect on my personal view of working as a community development person who has always struggled to manage my views, the views of the people I work with, and the views of the people that I work for. And there was always a struggle that made me, I mean, I have more than 20 years experience in working with communities. And I always felt like I am the minority in the way I think of how things should be moving forward. And because of that different view of insisting that the communities or the families or the children, the people in general that I work with has something to say, or that we cannot impose programs. And this comes clearly in my work with international organizations, where ready packages, programs, they come in, this is what the communities, need. We know because we're, we've done this research or that, or etc. So it was, it always created problems for me in terms of I was not comfortable doing them, and pushing through or against these was always a struggle for me. And sometimes the message would get through, and sometimes I would either have to leave, or it would just make work difficult with these the people who would think differently. So coming across by magic, as you say, Helma, I came across the mutual learning program in the internet, and I was so happy that there are people who think differently. So I initiated the contact, and I was generously welcomed into the program as a facilitator. And honestly, it has been a great experience because of two things. And I would say it again, that I am in a place where I am not being weighted to tell people what to do. I am in a place where I can share my experience for somebody who might decide to pick it up or learn from it. But also I am learning so much. I am learning what I thought that the communities know what they need. And seeing this from happening in different countries, hearing the experiences, the discussions, I've learned a lot. So I'm really happy to be part of this program. And as Ottawa said as well, I cannot wait until the next sessions, although I miss some of them because of life. So I'm very happy that I feel I am in my place finally, honestly, with people who think differently, and I'm learning. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Aditya. And I think you said something very important, that people, they might pick it up or not. And that's I think also the exciting part. What will they? It always reminds me of what Rocio said in her experience with Harleen Anderson. You should let it go. You don't know what they get out of it. It's like what also Otto said. I mean, we have an agenda, but it's not about our agenda. Everybody will take out something differently. And at the end, it makes that there are many agendas that are really realized, because everybody gets out what they need. That's I think, the magic part of it, the magic part of life. That's Justin. You have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Helma, and the whole team. Thank you, Salia, for giving us this opportunity to share all about the mutual learning. As Otto has said, in fact, we started this program not knowing really what it will be about and the way it will be conducted. But as the days come, as we have been involved in the program, we found it so useful, and in different ways, in different countries. It has been really a golden opportunity to share ideas from what we are doing in our area of children protection, children deinstitutionalization, and more. So it has been also an occasion to discuss about our work from a country to another, from a culture to another. So it has been really a golden opportunity. And we have been learning from the listening. For my first opportunity, I have heard, or I have learned well, what may be the definition of listening to people, listening to beneficiaries, and listening really, I got it from this mutual learning, and I have heard that finally it's a very good solution to the problems that I may be asking myself in my daily work. How to receive people or beneficiaries who come to me, how do I change, or how do I engage a dialogue with them? All these has changed my way of working. And I may say that up to 80% of the way I was working before, it has been completely changed from from this program of mutual learning. I came with a position of not knowing, because once I come in a dialogue with my colleagues, I come as if I don't know nothing. And finally, I learn from others. I learn from what they are doing, from what they are showing, from their experiences, and finding solutions, helping these beneficiaries in this area of children or decentralization and more. This one way of dialogical process has been very, very fruitful. And as I said, personally in my area, with the people that I work with, we are almost 80 employees in one institution. And from what I'm getting from the mutual learning, this is what I'm giving my job mates, and this is what we are implying. And learning this, it has not been learning from university, masters or PhDs. No, instead from the team, from my colleagues here, we have learned much than what I should learn from university or elsewhere. This is what I can see. Then I may make a kind of recommendation where possible. My recommendation may be a kind of globalizing this program. If this program should reach as many people as we can, if it should reach many corners of the world, I think the way of working with the children, helping beneficiaries in our area should be really something very, very great worldwide. And I think different countries, different experiences, different cultures, all together, sitting together, and I will know what is happening in one corner to another. That's how I will change my way of working and be very fruitful to beneficiaries. Thank you, dear team. Yes.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's very interesting what you say about globalizing more the program. That's how can we continue sharing, and collaborating, and talking to each other. That's it has a lot of strong results in especially in child protection, where there's a lot to do. Thank you, Justin. Irene, what were you thinking all the time? Let us know.
All right, just like the others, on the same wavelength, but from a different perspective, I'll say that from all that we've talked about, and that the having learned about dialogical practices, or dialoguing as a way of finding solutions, I will say that from my side, it has really influenced the approach I have when going to face or to take care of an issue, because mostly it will regard child protection. Because while before I went from a point of, this is what should be done, from now, since I learned, I then now go with from a point of, let me hear from them, let me engage with them, let me listen to them, and together we find a solution. Not like I'm journeying with them. I'm a companion. I'm not offering solution per se, but I'm accompanying them to find solutions for the issue that I have been called for. And it is very interesting that out of that, it has created a better relationship with them. You know, there's a better rapport. And then another interesting thing is that it's no longer like I'm above and they are below. It is easier now. It's like we are at the same level, and the approaching is easier. they don't find it difficult to pick a phone and call, or to send a kid or somebody to call me, or to say we need to talk, or there is this issue, we would like you to come in. You know, it's like it has made even working more easier, meaning that the relationship has taken over, and therefore solutions have become more easier to find. And it's interesting that the solutions have been solutions that some of which I wouldn't have known or thought about, even from my expertise aspect, because the solution lies in each individual's problem. Because what the solution of one family, let's say maybe a child has been abused, like maybe the child was beaten badly, and you know, I came in. When I speak and engage the family, I'll find that the intention of the mother was not really to, they didn't mean abuse. For them, they meant to discipline, but they did not have a perspective of there's a limit. You know, disciplining can go up to this far. If it goes beyond that, then that becomes abuse. But through dialogue, we have helped many of them understand what is children's right, what is abuse, what is not abuse, what are the limits, and how do I do it without going overboard. And that way it has created better relationships in the families, in the communities. So these are the things I have, you know, gotten out of all this. And then another thing that came towards the end was about the reflective groups. I find it coming very handy where the issues are very complex. Because when the issues are very complex and you don't seem to really make headways or to get somewhere, and I engage other people from a point of listening and giving their views, from a point of they are more close to these families and more known to them, we have found that there has been even better results in very complex situations and circumstances. Sometimes even issues that would have led to calling the police have been resolved in ways that were not expected, and everybody is ready to stand and, you know, and to support so that things work out. This is what I would like to share for now.
And Irene, you bring a very something very important to the table, because I remember one of our the first sessions we had as co-facilitators, that one of our colleagues said, yeah, but how do I do hardcore conversations? Because we are in a field where we're talking really about protection of children. I mean, like you said, Irene, abuse, maltreatment, and it's very it has a lot of impact on the child. So our question, of course, on one hand, the responsibility of to protect, because yeah, that's where our organization stands for. And at the same time, how do you, for example, work with families, but maybe also organizations that allow abuse, maltreatment, etc. So maybe we can think a little bit, I don't know whether that's about this, how has it helped us? What you already said is that, yeah, listening to and trying to understand. What did the other ones think while Irene was talking?
I was just thinking, and
Rocio, please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where is Saliha, but I'm sure she's going to jump in some point.
I'm here, but go ahead, Rocio, and I wanted to hear the response to Helma's question as well. Yeah.
Because we have to move in a while to small groups and to see, and we're going to invite everyone to be part of the small groups. So, and to continue this conversation in another way. So I was just thinking, and I think that I'm going to tell you some things that you don't know about. How do we continue these conversations? We continue always these conversations in a forum, in a program. We have a program platform that it's used for all of the members of the mutual learning program. And we just make questions, and then everybody continue answering all the time, and be prepared for the next conversation for the next meeting. And also, and I think what Irene was saying is that, well, sometimes when it's difficult in any situation, what we do is maybe to have a reflecting team with all of the members, or inviting someone else to be part of it and to share some ideas. And one of the things that for me has been very interesting is that, as usual, as many voices as possible make it sustainable, the project or the conversation. So that's what we have been doing all the time, working with these ideas. And of course, the philosophical stance is there. As you can see, how do we take care of the being very respectful here, inviting all the voices to be there, inviting the voices of the family, of the children, and do not trying not to suppose that we have to do, but asking all the time. So I was just thinking in that, and that idea of Foy that was saying, okay, that's from local. She said, think locally, share globally. And I love that question. And I love the way that she expressed this, because we act in a way in our community, in our work or whatever, but we share with everyone that it's waiting for our comments and all the time. And then we just construct knowledge in that way, and then we just come back to our community, in a local community, and continue constructing knowledge and new possibilities. And then we just come back. It's coming global, locally all the time. So for me, it has been very interesting to hear them again. But I don't know, what are you thinking, Saliha?
I felt the conversation was just getting started. And because we have the time constraint to go into breakout groups, I feel you and I are coming in to make shift. And I'm wondering if it's okay to be spontaneous and say that we take another 5 minutes with this conversation to hear maybe one or two, maybe we won't be hearing all 5 responses, but 1 or 2 responses to Helma's last question. And then I can comment. Is that okay, Rasia? Because I feel I want a little bit more meat from you all.
It was just the theme itself has been a lot of discussion. So how in a sector where you need to protect, how can you have this kind of conversation? How can you apply really being collaborative, dialogical, and at the same time the need to protect? So who of the team would like to share his thoughts with the experiences we have? And not all at the same time. Otto, go ahead.
Wait, only of the speakers or of everyone? I'm sorry.
Just of this panel, that's here. Yeah, we're still in that mutual
Sorry.
learning space. Yes, thank you for asking.
All right, I'll try to make it as concise as I can. I think that the philosophical stance that I picked up from the very beginning was that we shift the discussion from dichotomy, from what separates to what unites. In very simple terms, to me, that's you learn to focus on values rather than on the outside form, on the essence, not on the form. Therefore, when you get to that point, when you focus on values, then all this need to be almost confrontational in conversation because of the separation, because of what separates, it actually allows you to be constructive and to go together. So when it comes very practically to the very real need to protect, that's something that we all share. The question that we ask ourselves is about the form of that protection. And I think that's where debate can happen. It should happen. It enriches the entire process, the entire intervention, because it focuses light on a variety of possibilities from which, as a practitioner, you can choose the one that you think might work best. But it also gives you almost like a catalog of choices with which you can go to the child you serve, the family you work with, and present those options to them. and then make a really good decision together. So to me, there wasn't really, I think I went into this with the idea, understanding that, we're not focusing on differences. We're allowing them to happen by seeking that which unites, that we can actually find, we can actually have these difficult conversations without the pressure of, having to defend one perspective or the other.
Thank you, Otto.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. That's very helpful. Helma, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, just maybe, I don't know what Irene, Justin, Poe think of because what I feel in what Otto says is that the differences make that you have a lot of choice, and then because in childcare it's very important that for each situation of each child is specific, so you can never come with one solution because every child is different, and therefore these conversations and these also not agreeing makes that there are many it's necessary because it creates more options. I think when we go in child protection that there's only one way solution, this is the protection, and you have people who do not agree, then something is going wrong, because there is so much more. That's a bit what I was thinking. Justin, Irene, Poema, Aditya, what do you think?
Yeah, and that's your last word. Whoever takes it, they're it.
Yeah.
I think from my experience, it's not a question of are we protecting the children or the families. Just by being there is the willingness to be of help to these families. But the question is, how do we do it? Is it my move, or whose move is it? And I think that's where collaborative dialogue really enriches the situation by as many people can participate as this, as many family members can be involved. And it's very surprising that solutions come out sometimes from those who are really in the situation. And so I really don't think these two issues conflict, protecting or being, carrying a dialogue. I think protection is there if we keep the dialogue going.
Beautifully said, Khadija. Not that we have to come to agreement, but it's a nice way to I think go into breakout groups to continue this dialogue, as you were saying, Rocio, that the dialogue is not finished. And even for us as mutual learning team here, we can continue in the dialogue in the breakout rooms and continue to raise these questions. So I'm going to leave us with some reflections, but Helma is also going to give us some questions for the breakout rooms. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
they already, Salia, they are already in the chat.
Oh, you're ahead of me. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just share a couple of reflections, and then what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms, and I'll set up for breakout rooms in a minute. But the thing that struck me was again, not to create a dichotomy, but the dichotomy gets created in the way we enter into the field sometimes, in terms of what is considered evidence and what is considered dialogue. For example, what we're doing here, is this evidence-based practice or not? Each of you, could we not see each of us as we reflect on our work in this mutual learning as an inquiry-based practice that is, quote unquote, producing evidence about dialogue? So I bring that in because I think sometimes we see some things as fact, but we don't see the production or the making of fact. And I say fact-based, evidence-based research, I think Otto, you talked about it. And a lot of us come into this field thinking about that counts, those are solutions, but dialogue or what people come up is not a fact. And yet I hear the making of a fact here today. And so I think it is also questioning whose knowledge and thus whose voice matters. And so that's what I heard as a journey. And I was left wondering, if we had all the time in the world, how long did this journey take? A lot of you said, like Justin, you said 80% of your working style has shifted. Irene, you were talking about it so eloquently, so beautifully, like the outcome where families are just showing up and calling, and we want that. I mean, that is what they would say in grant world, the output, right? And like what was that process of your own journey and the people who work with to have that shift, say that listening is a pathway, right? So that's a larger question. We don't, but I leave us thinking in that, which is how does this happen? What does the training take and how long? But with that said, so thank you, Rocio, for asking me what I was thinking. There's so much we could go on. We are going to go into breakout groups, and I'm thinking we will do.
I just want to read
Sure.
the questions. What do you think of collaborative dialogue? In the child protection, and what do you think advocacy is working? The advocacy.
So for those of you who are not familiar with collaborative dialogue, feel free to take the spirit of this conversation and bring your interpretation of what is collaboration and dialogic practices to these two questions that Helma has posted. And reflect on the spirit of it, right? What we're talking about. And what we're going to do is have you self-select into groups of 2 and 3. And there are some groups in English language and some groups in Spanish. So that's why you're self-selecting with your comfort. And thank you to the panelists here for whom English is not the first language to talk in English. So for the rest of us, we could understand and connect. But feel free if you want to go into another language group, if you're comfortable making that happen. And we'll give, what should we say, about 15 minutes?
Yeah,
20?
I think so. Just
15
minutes. Sorry
Yes,
about
15. We were going to give 30 minutes, but we wanted to give more time. So let's do 15 minutes with 3 people per room.
Yeah.
And Papusa, are we ready to share the breakout rooms?
Yes, they are ready. And I said, if you go to the group and it's already like 5 people, go to the next one, because maybe the next one just have 1 waiting for you to join.
Yes.
So they are English speaking. We have 2 English speaking groups, and we have 4 Spanish speaking groups.
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not good at technology, but I haven't seen, how do I select my group?
So yes, if you go to your menu for Zoom, it says breakout rooms. It should give you that prompt. And then when you click on that, it will give you the options, but we can also move you.
Please.
So who is that?
The groups will appear at the end of all your names. And you have just to click on join, and that way you join that group.
She would like to be assigned. If you can assign her, Papusa.
Who is she?
Laura.
Laura.
Laura Cámara.
And you want English or?
English, please.
English. I already assigned you to Spanish. Okay, I send you to English.
You can move her.
Yeah, I will move her.
Sorry, because we have just 20 minutes, 15 minutes to.
15.
So share your time.
And I don't know, Papusa, what time you set it for?
It's not set up. We close when we decide.
Okay.
Para tudo na vida, necessitamos do equilíbrio do centro do nosso corpo.
I'm pausing recording.
Oh, we're back.
Okay, so Papusa told us that it was just 3 groups. So because of the time, sorry about that. Can each group just give a short sentence of what happened, or what do you highlight of your conversation because we are going to continue with other things.
And we know there were 2 Spanish speaking, so if you want to speak in Spanish, to just do that and Papusa will translate for us.
So the first group, go ahead.
Group number 1 was the English speaking group.
Okay, so the English speaking group, anybody who wants to speak up, or we can call you by name. Remember, there are multiple versions. You can share what came up for you from the group, and that'll be one way of sharing it, because we didn't prepare you to do a synopsis and you will be like, am I going to be fair? Multiple voices. Okay, I think I'm going to call out a name. Laura.
Just please a short sentence, Laura.
Yes. First, I apologize because I talk too much. And it was partly of when there are different, well, what you mean by protection, and when different parties are in different themes, and how a lot of times for the institutions, as for the authorities, the way to come up to them is how it helps in the economical part, and how it's less effort for them. And how a lot of times a way to make it more available, as for the work, is to get student practitioners to help. And how we can't also be a prisoner of our own discourse, but be open to others, and listen, and really listen. Know how to approach the people in a way that they will listen. Be aware of all of the needs and all of the discourses, all of the ideas. Not only aware, but open to, is pretty much what I got from it. I don't know if everybody agrees.
Thank you. Thank you. From that English speaking group, is there anything else you would like to add to Laura's voice?
Okay.
Okay, you guys are doing excellent. 1 minute, 1 sentence. This is perfect, Laura.
Thank you.
Next group.
El grupo 2 fue uno de los grupos de español. Group 2 was one of the Spanish speaking groups. Si hablas en español, no te preocupes. Voy a traducir secuencialmente. If you speak in Spanish, no problem. I will sequentially translate sequentially.
Can I name?
Yes, please.
Jorge.
Yo estaba en el grupo de inglés.
I think he was in the first group, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's Diego, Leah, or Elizabeth. And
Go ahead, Diego.
Rosura.
Hola, buenos días.
Buenos días.
Papu,
Okay,
Papu te va a traducir, así que no te preocupes.
Ok. Estuvimos en un grupo, 3 personas de la misma organización. Yo trabajo en Daniel Children's Fund, compañero de Helma, de Poema. Y estuvimos con Elizabeth, pero también estuvimos con Rosaura y con Lía, con quienes compartimos. Y más bien las preguntas iban como dirigidas hacia nosotros, ¿no? ¿Cómo fue el proceso?
It just so happened that there were, and in our group, there were 5 people, but 3 of us work for the same organization. That is Children's Fund. And
Diego, espera.
Okay.
The group, there were 3 people from Daniel Children's Funds, and there are 2 other persons, Rosaura and Leah, who work for other organizations. But what happened is that they ask us a lot of questions about what we do. Continúa.
Ok. Gracias, Papusa. Les comentábamos como 2 momentos que tuvo Daniel Children's en este camino hacia el diálogo con el Estado.
And we make comments about our journey through our dialogue with the state institutions with the government.
El primero fue movernos de una ciudad pequeña donde trabajábamos hacia la capital, donde estaba concentrado el poder.
And the first thing we did was that we physically moved from one small town where the NGO was located at the beginning. We moved to the capital of the Ecuador. We moved to Quito because it's where the main governmental offices were.
Sí, para nosotros era importante poder estar cercano a las autoridades y a las entidades que tenían capacidad de decidir en temas de niñez y adolescencia.
Because they were where the organizations, institutions, the government who was capable of making decisions of public policy were located.
Y lo segundo que pasó fue que empezamos a agruparnos con otras organizaciones que tenían la experiencia y la posibilidad de poder hacer cambios con el Estado.
Simultaneous to this move, what we started to do is construct networks with other institutions and NGOs who were doing similar type of work, and that some of them already had dialogue with the government or have working relationships with governmental institutions.
Y lo que hicimos es crear una red, la Red Convivencia Ecuador. En esta red lo que hicimos es empezar a dialogar desde las propuestas y desde tratar de entender lo que el Estado ya había hecho y rescatar todas esas buenas experiencias.
And so what we started doing in this network of NGOs is we started dialogues about what each one of us was doing and what was working and not, but also what is that we were doing, each one of us with the government, and how those dialogues were going on.
Entonces, nuestra postura siempre fue de escuchar y de proponer y de intercambiar experiencias.
So our position from the very beginning was to listening, to propose, and more important, to exchange experiences.
Y en ese camino nos encontramos con Poema, que estaba en el Estado en ese entonces, y nosotros desde la sociedad civil, y empezamos a construir como estos diálogos.
And in that journey, we met Poema, who at the time was working for the government. So she was going inside the governmental structure in the conversations with her.
Okay.
Bueno, pues no sé si quieres compartir un poco cómo.
No, it's okay because of time.
Está bien por el tiempo.
Okay.
Gracias, Diego. So thank you, Papus, for the last group, just sentence to move on to see what the panelists were thinking at the same, in just small sentences. The third group, who was the third group?
So the third group, Adriana, Joseph, Gisela, Paulina, Sarah. Who do you want to call, Rocio?
Adriana de León, Gisela Rangel, Joseph, Paulina Altamirano, y Sara Edith.
I don't know, Joseph, if you would like to add something, or you are preferred just to. Okay, just Gisela, go ahead, if you don't mind. Gisela.
Hola. Sí, en el grupo comentamos acerca de la, pues cómo aplicar, ¿no? Las prácticas en cualquier espacio. Hablábamos acerca de cómo este poder, pues, como transformador, ¿no? Y también que se vuelve un reto en las instituciones, por ejemplo, traer estas voces. Salió por ahí el tema acerca de poder compartir esto en otros espacios. Voy a dar mañana
Ok, voy a traducir, Gisela. So
Disculpa.
what Gisela said is that a lot of the conversation also was about how to bring this type of voices, this type of dialogues, this philosophical stance to other places and institutions or NGOs where we work, and they may not be that open to hear other voices. Continúa, Gisela.
Sí, hablamos de cómo era importante privilegiar la voz de los adolescentes.
And
por
we
encima
talk about how was important to privilege the voice of the children and adolescents.
y cómo privilegiar esa relación también, y que a veces no hay una manera de medir esos resultados y los efectos en los adolescentes desde desde esta manera de estar con ellos y no hacer para.
And as we privilege their voices, the challenge is that sometimes for the institutions, there's not a way to measure what happened in these relationships and these dialogues that take place between the adolescents themselves and the workers. Continúa.
Y cómo juntos se pueden crear estos diferentes resultados, ¿no? Y realidades posibles.
And how these kind of dialogues start creating new possibilities or new realities.
Gracias.
Gracias, Gisela. So, Saliha, we have 7 minutes. What do you think?
I was just wondering if Helma and team wanted to just comment on kind of continuing the dialogue. What thoughts are you leaving with? Because this is an ongoing dialogue. And then come back, but very brief.
Very brief.
Yes.
Otto, you have the microphone already open. Would you like to comment, or was it not intentionally?
No, not
No,
intentionally.
it was not intentionally.
I
Would
feel like
anybody like to comment? Irene, Justin, Hadija, Boe?
I would just say that, you know, the way that mutual learning program works, it doesn't provide solutions. It's not bringing anything, you know, that would solve issues. It's just a way of dealing with things. And we need always to remember that we need time. For any change, time is needed, and that should be the component of any programs or any projects that we carry forward.
And I think what Gisela, what you said, we are not working for, but we're working with. And that means that you don't know where you're going to end, because it's the only thing you know is that you're going to walk together, but you don't know yet exactly where you're going. And that's, I think, that's being realistic in life, because that's living life. We cannot change something for someone else, but the other one can make the changes they want to make. And that's what you said in the words, we're working with the people and we're not working for the people. Thank you so much, Gisela.
Thank you, Helma. How about Irene and Otto?
Well, for the reflection that came to mind is that the relationship becomes the most important, for out of the relationship, solutions are born or found. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. How about Otto or Justin?
Welcome.
Boy. Go ahead, Otto.
Right, I was hoping
No.
I see. No, of course. It's always very hard for me to conclude because there's millions of thoughts flying on in my head. So I'm afraid I'm not going to give you a satisfactory conclusion. Because I do believe that the dialogue continues, and it's something that is very important to me personally, but I think also for this issue that we elected to talk to about in the context of collaborative practices and dialogical practices, and that's child protection. I think that for child protection, dialogue must continue always. And I say must, although I don't usually use such a strong word. But I think that in the case of child protection, we need to make sure that dialogue continues on and on and on, because there isn't any other way. And as Helma said, we don't know where we're going to end up. And that's very nice because we're working together, we're walking together, and that we know that. But if we don't do dialogue, I know we're not going to end up in a nice place.
Thank you, Otto. Now, Justin, boy, you have it ready? Oh, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Not far from what Otto has said, I think this is a continuous dialogue. And around what was asked in groups or these few presentations from groups, it's all about making changes with the people, not for people, as Helma has said. And this is from this mutual learning, one to another, the way I'm doing things. You may change from what I'm doing, from my experience, or from my what I have presented, and then one to one, and all together we learn in the same circle, but not from top to down, or from down to top, but as people who are doing in the same area, same intervention. I think this dialogue has to continue really as well, and then we'll go far. Thank you.
Thank you. And boy?
I was thinking in protection systems, it's usually that we focus on results because we need to get some results of protection. But when we focus on that, we always are blaming each other, or blaming families, blaming our colleagues because they don't get to the results that are good enough for children. And this process of changing the focus, not on results, but on the process and on relationship, has allowed us to relate better each other. In Ecuador, relate better with families, with children, with state people, with our colleagues, and also to expand our relational networking with other organizations around the world. So I'm really grateful because of this experience of be aware that we're creating realities as well as we are relating with each other.
Thank you. Well, we're almost done. We're done.
We are. I think that's beautiful, and to underscore, boy, you bringing together organizations is to bring together voices and families. And I think that's the spirit of dialogue. And for me, I'm going to say something very bold here, Rocio, and that is dialogue is human rights, because it is about voice. Voice is human rights. And if I don't have a voice, and if I'm not heard, then whatever programming people do for me, I am not going to be seen and heard. And that's what dialogue does. So I'm going out bold. Dialogue is human rights if we are to participate with each other.
Yeah, and as we all said, all conversations are always interrupted. And as much voices we invite to continue this dialogue, our project is going to be sustainable. So thank you very much to each one of you. Thank you, Papusa and Saul, for helping us. Thank you, Rene, for your work as always. And thank you, Saliha. Thank you, the panel, of course.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. And thank you, Saliha, for
Thank you, Rocio. It's my honor to travel with you all. So thank you all. And if the panel and Rocio and a couple of folks who are behind the scene want to stay back, I'm happy to, but we also have a plenary here at 11 o'clock.
yeah, I know.
So I want to honor that. But
Oh.
thank you all, and may the conversation continue.
Let's continue the conversation. Bye-bye.
Thank you and
Thank
bye.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.